Andrews. Gimms is called the vertical head. Let's explain what a vertical head to me is. You might want to ask him. All right? Because it also tells you about how companies and organizations would like to locate their CSR and how the CSR is either in the middle of the pie or on the trimmings of the pie or at the base of the pie. So we'll ask him to talk about that. But Gimms is, as he has been described in your books over there, the ones that you got, is a seasoned senior management professional. And I guess all that salt and pepper hair, yeah, must be why they call you Season. All right. With a proven for all seasons. Yeah, all right. With a proven record of establishing, and this is quite a nice description. All right, of establishing highly motivated, cohesive, and effective teams. And it tells you much about his organization. It's coming from India. All right, and then he has been most concerned about not only sustainable rehab, but also impact. And this has been a question to us, and we've always asked CSR guys, especially the do-gooders, yeah, is how do you know you've done well anyway? And so here we have again the notion of what is sustainable rehabilitation and how Jim and his company has defined it. And how do you make it sustainable, which is really a question for many of our companies today. So may I invite, yeah, and he's just right there. He heads the corporate social responsibility vertical at Sahara, India, Pariwar, the world's largest family. Is that true?
Well, we have 1.2 million employees.
All right. So that, anyone here with 1.2, 1.3? Well, as far as we're concerned, he's not the largest. All right? It's a major business conglomerate in India. And therefore, the question we might want to ask is, how do you locate CSR when everybody is part just of a holding company and they start to move on their own? So, James, we'd love to listen to your story.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. This is the last session of the last day of the entire conference. Okay, so so I hope you will. I'm sure you will be awake through the session because it's going to be such an electric session, and I promise to keep you awake. All right. Well, I represent this organization called Sahara India Pariwar. It is this logo. It's been an organization since more than 30 years. It's a huge conglomerate. The organization, we have a little bit about, we were established in 1978, and we have focused in many different things like the financial services, real estate, the hospitality industry. Recently our company got into dairy farms, and we have holdings in India and abroad and other places. No business in the Philippines yet, but hopefully in the future. It's a hope. That's why I'm here. I can go back and inspire our people. But we are an $11 billion company. So in terms of turnover, not as big as many American corporates. But in India, the company employs around 1.2 million people, which is quite large. So it's next to the Indian Railways and the Indian Army. And the Indian Army is the largest in the world next to the Chinese Army.
Oh my God, yes.
So that's why the word Pariwar means family in Hindi. And so when you say Sahara India Pariwar, so that's why they say the world's largest family, because of the 1.2 billion employees. And it's not long since I have joined this company. I have been in the development sector for the last 20 years, mostly on the implementation side. I was heading NGOs, helping to build NGOs, working in slums across India. And now for the last 1 year or so, for the first time, I'm on the other side of the table with a corporate company in charge of some funds to donate, for implementation work. So kind of seeing both sides of the coin. The company has done various different charity works from time to time. We've been involved in various disasters like earthquakes or terrorist attacks and various situations where there was humanitarian need. One thing very unique is that when there was a war in India with one of our neighboring countries, around 300 soldiers died. And so our company, our chairman, decided to adopt the families of those 300 martyrs. And when we say adopt, what they meant specifically is that the school fees of the children of those families will be paid till they get jobs. Things like that. So very unique, out-of-the-box kind of programs this company has come up with. But today, what I want to share with you specifically is our key program, which we call the Vedas program. And Vedas stands for Village Esteem Development by Sahara. So this is what I'm trying to talk about when we say holistic development. Many people have debated what is holistic, and so we have an idea of holistic, and we get into a village and we say we should adopt the whole village, not just one section of the village, and try to create an impact in that village that will make a difference. Okay, so we came up with 8 different interventions that these villages would be needing, and we identified around 1,000 villages across 7 states of India. Now, India is a huge country with a huge population, 1.2 billion people, the population. So this project will be covering around 450,000 rural households, and eventually will touch 2.5 million people's lives across 7 states of India. So it's a very ambitious project that our chairman took up last year. The company is headed by Mr. Subrata Roy, who started this company around 37 years ago. He's the chairman of the company. And so he came up with this vision called the Vedas Project. So in the Vedas Project, what exactly we do? We came up with 8 different interventions. And I'm going to share these 8 interventions, and I'm going to take you through some photographs so that you see visually what we mean by these interventions. All right? The first one was sanitation, and what exactly is sanitation I'll explain to you with pictures. The second is primary health, joyful education, empowerment, safe drinking water, solar lamps, safe migration, agricultural yield. These are the 8 specific interventions. So we thought we'll identify 1,000 villages, enter these villages, and 8 different programs we will start in these villages. Alright, now let me take you through some photographs. And these pictures were clicked by me personally, by my personal digital camera. I visited the villages, our programs a few months ago. If you see the date on the photograph, it says February, 4th of February. So that was when I visited this program. This is in a village called Kanauj, which is around 300 kilometers away from a place called Lucknow, which is the capital of Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh is the largest state in India. The population of Uttar Pradesh is 200 million, which is twice the size of the Philippines.
Yes.
Okay, and Uttar Pradesh by itself, if you separated Uttar Pradesh by itself as a nation, it would be the 5th largest country in the world after China, India, USA, Indonesia, and then it will be Uttar Pradesh. That's the size of 200 million people. And and yet, there's so much poverty in Uttar Pradesh, and there's so many needs in Uttar Pradesh. So that's one of the areas in which we focus a lot. In this district called Kanauj, we have an office. There's a simple office there. This is our district office. From the office, when you look outward, this is the scene you get. It's mostly rural villages. There are farmlands there, and population mostly focused on agriculture. As you enter the office, there's a lot of activity. You see all these things hoarded up, stuff brought for these Vedas project to be implemented. And in the picture, you see a man standing there. I'm going to talk specifically about him. That's him here. His name is Manoj Srivastava. He's an interesting man. He's in charge of the sanitation program. And when we say, and I shared earlier about the sanitation program, and when we say the sanitation program, what does it mean? Okay? When you hear the word sanitation, what comes to your mind? I would like to ask you, what comes to your mind when you hear the word sanitation? Anybody would like to answer? Okay, yes, what else? Hygiene, what else? There's a particular word that no one has said yet.
Clean and safe.
Basically toilets, right? Now, all of us take toilets for granted. I'm sure everybody sitting in this room, we all use toilets, and toilets is not an issue at all. But in India, 70% of our population, 60 to 70% of our population do not use toilets. They've never heard of toilets, they don't see toilets. Because that's what happens in rural India. In rural India, open defecation is very common, as in many developing world countries. Am I right?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's many different parts of Africa or Asia even.
Yeah.
But this was a problem that the government of India wanted to tackle, and we also wanted to tackle. So the government of India came up with a scheme whereby if you approach the government, they will give you 10,000 rupees to build a toilet, an Indian style toilet, and it will be great. You can have. So what we did is we found a way. We thought, let's benefit from this program. But you know, as with many governments, the bureaucracy is very heavy, and so getting this 10,000 rupees from the government is very difficult. So what did we do? We snooped around and we found a man working in the government department, taking care of this program, and that was this man Manoj. He was working in the district office. We went and hired him so that he comes on our side, and so we have the whole know-how of how to fill up forms and avail of this 10,000 rupees to build toilets. So with that, we started going around the villages, and with his know-how, we were able to apply and we were able to start building toilets. Okay? But then we faced a new problem. We built all these toilets in the villages, and then we found out that the villagers were not using the toilet. So we went and asked them, why are you not using the toilets? And they said, we are very comfortable with open defecation. What's your problem? Why do you want to force us to use toilets? So we had to embark on this huge campaign to create awareness of the hazards of open defecation and how disease spreads and why it is so important to use toilets and hygiene. And so then Manoj came up with you see these charts behind with all this communication material to teach people, and he went from village to village, and then slowly people started, understanding and then bought over, and then, we started seeing success with these toilets being used. So the sanitation program started seeing success. They liked the toilets because the government was paying for it. It was a nice cement room with a door that had a lock, and they liked the room. But they were using it for something else. You know what they were using it for? Take a guess. Storage. Exactly. They were using it for storage, and they were using it for some specific storage. In rural parts of India, cow dung is dried and then used as fuel. I'm talking about the poorest of the poor, how they live. Millions of people in India. Getting firewood to cook your food is very difficult. So they take cow dung, dry it on a wall, break it into these small cakes, and they burn it. That's fuel for food, for their daily food. So this cow dung is stored in these toilets, and they found it very useful, and they were very thankful to us for those. But Manoj was successful in convincing many people, and so the program became quite successful. That was our sanitation program. Now let me talk about our primary health program. So primary health, what we have is we have a simple team, 3 people as you can see here, a doctor, a pharmacist, and a driver. They go around in this mini van as you can see. They go around from village to village, and on an average they treat simple things like cold, cough, fever, check your BP, and if there's any complication they refer them to the district hospitals for better treatment. But even simple treatment in villages, is not available. So by these vans with the doctor going into the villages, and we have simple medicines in the previous slide. If you see, what you see there is basically the medicines, for these simple things. So that's our primary health program, which is quite interesting. Then education. Now again, all of this, what am I talking about? I'm talking about we adopted one village. And in each of these villages, we're doing all these 8 programs. And like that, we have charted out 1,000 villages. And the program is scaling up right now. So far, we have reached 700 villages. And by 2016, we want to cover all 1,000 villages. So that's the ambitious project, CSR project that our company has taken up. Now, with regards to joyful education, what we do is we go to these schools and we negotiate with the school, take 2 classrooms, renovate these classrooms, paint them a bit. And then in these classrooms, we have these kind of students, as you can see. These are children who are running around in the village. Our workers basically get them, talk to them, bring them into a classroom, and use multimedia technology to kind of attract them to schooling. One of the biggest problems with the children in the villages as to why they don't get educated is what we call dropout. They just drop out. They go to school, and they don't find it interesting, and they just drop out. So how do you make going to school interesting? That was the whole challenge. And so we came up with this idea of joyful education, similar to what Adva was talking about, which is quite interesting. Now the other thing that we do is empowerment. What is empowerment? Basically, it's like the old saying, you give a man a fish, you feed him for one day, but you teach him to fish, you feed him for life. Same concept. So empowerment. So what do we do with empowerment? We teach various vocational skills. This is a computer training center. You can see the computers there on the side. Okay. So we have youth, both young men and women who come to this class. By getting a computer training, they're able to get better jobs, probably in call centers and all that. But a lot of our empowerment program is focused on women, the women in the village. And if you ask me, why particularly the women in the village, and there is a specific reason for that. I'd like to share a newspaper. Now, before I share this article, a newspaper article, I want to warn you. The details in the newspaper article is a bit shocking. So strengthen your heart a little bit before we read this newspaper article. This was an article that I read just a few months ago, April 27th in Mumbai. I live in Mumbai. The Times of India, which is a popular newspaper, and it reads, "Man slashes wife to death as son looks on." It says a fish vendor, Prakash, aged 45, on Friday slashed his first wife, Preeti, to death outside his house in Palghar, even as their son, 15 years old, watched in horror. Prakash, who used to reside with his two wives, the other being Preeti's sister, Tripti, was absconding, the police said. The sisters have two sons, each with Bahoy. On April 16, Preeti had complained to the police that her husband had been spending her money earned from selling fish on alcohol and threatened to kill her. The police, however, had refused to register a complaint. On Friday night, he returned home drunk, got into an argument with Preeti, dragged her out, and then, the rest you can, details there. So why am I sharing this story? This story is very typical of what happens in, underprivileged communities. There is frustration, there is anger, and one of the biggest problems is alcoholism. Men consume alcohol, they work daily wages, labor the whole day, they're tired, they come back in the evening, they're frustrated, they consume alcohol, and then what do? Come back home, and then there's violence at home, and then who's witnessing all of this? The children. And the children witness this, and then what happens to the next generation? Same cycle is repeated. Because those boys, the son, saw his dad do that. So he ends up doing the same thing. So this, if you go to, I've traveled, from north to south, east to west of India, visited so many villages and so many rural parts, and everywhere I go, I find this problem. So many NGOs have come together, many institutes have come together, and one big solution to this problem is women's empowerment. And why women's empowerment? Because it has been discovered that women, few reasons. One of them, they do not consume that much alcohol. They do a little bit, but not to the point where they get totally out of control. So women don't consume that much alcohol. So not a lot of their money goes into alcoholism. All right. Then the other thing is when a woman has a livelihood, she's able to earn money. Because she doesn't consume alcohol, she's able to save that money. And so there is money available in the house. And then secondly, a woman is much more motivated to send her children to school than a man. So if the finances are in the hands of a woman, then the money is saved, and she's able to send the children to get educated, and that education gives a chance for the next generation to escape this vicious cycle, of poverty that goes on and on in many rural communities across the world. And what I'm sampling for you is just one situation in India. And so, like in this story itself, this woman, she sells fish. She's entrepreneurial, she sells fish, she makes some savings, but then, her husband wants that money back from her and wants to consume it on alcohol. Typical story. Now, in the same newspaper on that day, I saw another interesting article about mehendi. Some of you might know mehendi. It's a very common thing in Indian weddings. They use, this is a temporary kind of tattoo used by a material called henna. Henna is the leaves of a certain plant. You dry them, crush them, and then make it into a paste, and then it can make designs on your hand, and it goes off in 2 or 3 weeks. So this is very popular in India, all across India. And mostly it's the women who do mehendi. And it takes maybe 1 hour, and with 1 hour of work, you can, earn, like 150 minimum, 150 rupees to even 1,000 rupees, depending upon the design and all that. Very simple thing. So what we have done is we have adopted this in our vocational training program. We teach women Mehendi program. And so they come up with, they learn different designs, so during weddings they can go get jobs for themselves and be self-sufficient, self-supported. We also teach women sewing, and embroidery. So this is all sources of livelihood for the women, to help them out. So that's our empowerment program. The other program we have is safe drinking water. Now, safe drinking water is a bit, this is a little complicated, because what we do is we install this. It's called RO plant. RO stands for reverse osmosis. Okay, and this plant can handle around 1,000 liters per hour. It sucks water from underground, and so we drill these bore wells. And so we have like one plant per village, per cluster of villages. So one plant per district, and then once this water is sucked out, it goes into a tank that you can see here on the left side of the picture here. And from the tank, it's pumped into this water tanker, and the water tanker then takes it to the villages. And in the villages, these overhead tanks are installed. The water tanker pumps it up there, and the villagers can then get from this unit. This unit is called an automatic dispensing unit. And so each villager is given this kind of a card. It's like an ATM card. You show that card, and they can get 3 liters per head per day. Of drinking water. It's as good as our mineral water, potable drinking water. And so we create that kind of a system whereby, install this in different parts of the villages, and so that's how the villages can get drinking water. Now, this program is a bit cost intensive, and the company bears the installation cost of the machinery and the tanker and all that. And initially it's free, but eventually we want to start charging money for the bottled water. And then the last one, second last, is solar lamps. We just give lamps for people to help with their night reading. Safe migration is helping people with regards to many people from the villages. They migrate to the cities, and they get through a lot of problems. We create a way to help them to migrate safely, and then even not migrate if possible. Agricultural yield is basically creating some kind of manure from resources in the village to help the farmers with their farming, so that the yield increases in their farmland. Let me end with a quote. Rabindranath Tagore is a famous poet in India, and he wrote, "I slept and dreamt that life was a joy. I awoke and saw that life was a service. I acted, and behold, service was a joy." All of us are looking for happiness and joy in life. But when you start serving other people, that's when you realize and you start finding out true joy in your life. That's what Rabindranath Tagore said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gimms. Tagore